So I'm looking forward to a speech entitled Return on Investment. If you'd all help me welcome to the stage, here to the podium, I believe it's 1994 International Year Champion of Speaking, Morgan McArthur.
Good morning, rise and shine, friends.
Good morning.
This is where it started. This is where it started. What a magical morning and great opportunity this is. So thanks for allowing me the opportunity for some time on your program. Garth and I walked in together, and I said, look, I was coming in here whether I had the opportunity to stand and address or not. And great to see colleagues and old friends, Marty and Patricia. We go way back. So as I look across this group, and I ask a question, what is it that brought you to Toastmasters? That's always an interesting sort of a conversation wherever we go. And I think about my own journey, and I too joined in 1987. And I was forced through the door. I was a practicing veterinarian here in Idaho Falls, and I worked with a guy I didn't like. And we've all probably had that opportunity. And the guy I didn't like was a veterinarian named Scott McGregor. And McGregor, before he became a veterinarian, had been a high school teacher. And he'd been a teacher down in Colorado at a boarding school for boys. So he was trying to inject mathematics into the minds of adolescent boys who, I'm told, adolescents in the progression of their maturity, a young adolescent male will have a sexual thought about every 7 seconds. So try and insert mathematics in those windows. You have to become a very good speaker. And McGregor was everything. We would have seminars at the old Stardust down the road here. And we would have seminars for our veterinary farming and ranching clients on exciting subjects like diarrhea for cattle and first aid for horses, and try to engage the audience. And McGregor could do it, but I could not. I was a quivering bowl of jelly at the front of the room, scared and frightful for projecting competence. And I looked at him and I so disliked him personally. And then the fact that he was such a good speaker, I thought, I have a problem and I need to fix it. And so that's what thrust me through the door at Rise and Shine Toastmasters. And there's a book called Moments of Truth. It's an old book now, and I believe years ago Toastmasters adopted it as part of their programming. It's probably gone by the wayside now. But Moments of Truth are when you've got a new member that comes through the door, how you treat that person is the first impression, and that will dictate whether or not they come back. And Marty will remember this personality well. I was greeted by a fellow named Marvin Klein. Marv Klein had been born in a place called Hog Shooter, Oklahoma. He was a past international director, and he was Toastmasters all the way to the marrow of his bones. And Morgan, welcome to Rise and Shine Toastmasters, extended his hand, and that was the beginning of the end. And so there I was at Rise and Shine, 3505, staying alive, and the journey began in February of 1987. And what a ride it has been. My topic this morning is return on investment, and I had a conversation yesterday with another former member of Rise and Shine, Carrie Schwartz, if you'll remember Carrie. Carrie is an elite artisan. He's a saddle maker of international acclaim, and he lives in Salmon, Idaho. And I visited with Carrie yesterday, and we agreed together that Toastmasters completely changed the trajectory of our lives personally and professionally. And the return on investment was far exceeded our expectations. That outcomes are there, available to us, that we cannot even imagine. This sounds like a sales presentation, but it's just testimonial that I've had an opportunity to talk to others about my career trajectory, and every dot on the graph has been touched in some way by what happened and what started here in Rise and Shine. So return on investment, I had 3 points, as we should. You had 3 wonderful points. Well done. The first one is to invest yourself. look as a little admission. People will say, well, you're a natural speaker. Well, I'm not. I was always an attention-seeking machine when I was a kid. I had a need to make people laugh and engage people in ways that, look, the truth is that I didn't like myself very well. And so if I could get other people to like me, then that would fill me up just a little bit. It was sort of a shallow strategy. But when I walked through the door and was greeted by Marvin Klein, and when I got my first evaluation from a former Toastmaster of Idaho Falls, Mel Kirkendall, that started to fill me up. And I found that Toastmasters was like a drug for me. It was giving me undivided attention for 5 to 7 minutes and applause as a bonus. And I'll have more of that, thank you very much. And the addiction began. And that fed this whole thing, and it burst into flame. But I really, truly invested myself and worked hard on those speech projects. It was not developing a speech at the stoplight before you turn up Lindsay Boulevard. It was a scripted talk, and it was working hard on all of those 10 projects. Scripting, wordsmithing, crafting, working hard on all of that. That doesn't happen so much now, but you know what? It's almost 30 years that I've been doing this business. So we've got the opportunity to grow if we choose to invest ourselves. It's proportional, isn't it? Based on mathematics. What you put in is what you get out. So investing ourselves, getting multiple evaluations. We do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I leaned over to Marty, and when we say liberty and justice for all to the flag, my mentor in Rise and Shine Toastmasters was a fish and game officer named Justin Naderman. So it's liberty and Justin for all to this day. But mentorship is really important. If we want to grow, we've got this great opportunity to get input from others and take us to another level. And I always saw Toastmasters as a laboratory, as a safe place to do something that's really scary. For most people, it's a really scary experience to stand up and speak. But here we are, and we've got this opportunity to do all sorts of stuff. And somebody's going to tell you, don't do that again. Well, listen to that. You know, in my early days, Marty may or may not remember it, but I was a shouter. And I was just going like this, the jugular veins were standing out, and I would be hoarse after a 7-minute speech. And somebody finally gently said, you know what, you don't have to shout at us. And it took me a long time to learn that, but I wouldn't have figured that out if somebody hadn't given me that harsh sort of evaluation. So invest ourselves, and the return on that investment will come back to us. Now, I'm sorry, but the red light is on, and I'm still rolling, so I ain't from around here, so I'm just going to keep rocking. People say, what's the secret to your success? And I said, it's 2 words. It's be yourself. You know, when we look at somebody who's exceptionally good, and I had a fellow from Salt Lake City named John Howard, who was a perennial competitor and an exceptional speaker. He had been to the International Speech Contest Finals 5 times. 5 times. And at the time, that was unprecedented. He got 2nd place in 1988. And I learned a lot from John Howard, and I would look at him and I'd say, I've got to be like that guy. No. We'll watch other people who are so good and say, why can't I be like you, or you, or you? Why can't I be like that? Because we're not that person. You know, one of the secrets is be yourself. And one of the returns on investment for Toastmasters is, first of all, we can't be ourselves until we find ourselves. You know, we come in here a lot of times without much confidence. And so we bump around, and finally we find acceptance, and we find our feet just a little bit. And if we stay in the program long enough, we find our voice. And by finding our voice and being comfortable in our own skin, standing in front of the audience, we start to become ourselves. And that authenticity is really the core of a speaker's strength, I believe. I've heard some very powerful speakers who have had 0 training, but they are so authentic that you're just drawn to their message. So by investing ourselves in this program, we become ourselves. So the secret is to be yourself, but first we have to find ourselves, then be ourselves, and then share ourselves. And the stuff that we learn in these meetings is tremendous. A lot of cross-pollination takes place. right here in the magic of a Toastmasters meeting. And lastly, the return on investment is confidence, isn't it? Confidence is like a secret sauce. And I have found throughout my life that the confidence that I gained as a result of this Toastmasters experience poured over everything else, professionally or personally. And we've got that confidence, then we've got the secret sauce. And it comes from, as a byproduct of repetition, continual practice, the stimulation of the gymnasium that is this Toastmasters laboratory. And an urging that I would have for you is, sooner or later we become comfortable in this group, don't we? We get comfortable and we can predict what's going to happen. We predict that this one's gonna be crazy and gonna be funny and all the rest of it. But really the step towards confidence is the step outside of the club. When we take these skills then and go out there. Look, an example of that, a couple of years ago, through another charity organization that I'm involved with in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a fellow came up to me and said, you know, he said, my dad's getting pretty old. He said, when he dies, I want you to give his eulogy. I said, oh yeah, Mark, I'll wait for that call. And you know what? It came at 8:10 a.m. And this fellow from Chicago called and he said, hey, my dad died on my birthday. And my birthday's today. He died at midnight. And he said, I'm a man of my word. I want you to come down to Chicago and give his eulogy. And I said, Mark, I said, let's be honest. I hardly know you. And I said, I've never met your dad. I can't do that. I can't possibly give his eulogy. He said, I'll pay you. I said, I'll be right down. Yeah. But it's that Toastmasters stuff. It's the stuff that we acquired here in this program that allows us to take that step and go out and do those kinds of things. I'm getting old now. I'm 58 years old, and I've got people dropping off the conveyor belt, and frequently I get eulogy duty. Why? Nobody wants to be there. Nobody wants to public speak in the first place. Second of all, who wants to give a eulogy? Because that's really intense. But Toastmasters has gifted me with this foundation, with this investment of time and talent to grow myself, to become a better speaker, a better communicator, better leader. So the return on investment, friends, ask yourself why you came here. You know, why did I come 30 years ago? Because I worked with a guy I didn't like who was a better speaker than me. Why do I come back now? Because this program has given me so much. It's given me more than I ever would have envisioned. And it's the likes of yourselves that help launch somebody like me on a trajectory I never could have imagined. So, belatedly, I thank you. And with that, that's all, folks.